What's up guys, JayzTwoCents here, and I promised I would revisit our video about the Ryzen 2200G and 2400G. If you recall in that video, which I'll pop out right here, you guys can go and check it out. We had some issues, unfortunately, with our review samples that were sent to us, sort of kind of rebutting some of the concepts that were sent cherry-picked samples, but I digress, that's besides the point. We experienced some issues with that and we were not getting optimal results. But we've got new CPUs, new motherboards, everything is fresh, and we're actually seeing some really promising results, making me excited for what could possibly be 2018, the year of the budget gamer. So we're gonna go ahead and talk about that, maybe some of the growing pains with it, and whether or not this is a platform you should even consider. Today's video is sponsored by audible.com/JayzTwoCents, and I just finished listening to The Power of Habit, giving me better habit choices in 2018. I'm easily distracted, so I need habits to keep me on track. So that's why that title was perfect for a guy like me. Now, if you sign up for Audible right now using my link down in the description below, you get a free 30-day trial membership. But with that membership, you get a book to download that is absolutely yours to keep forever. So you get to choose the title and it's yours no matter what. But signing up also gets you a book to keep every single month that never expires. Now I need a new title. So what do you guys recommend that I check out? Head to the link in the description below, audible.com/JayzTwoCents to start your free 30-day trial membership, or just text JayzTwoCents to 500-500. So the issue we had in the previous video was that our MSI motherboard, which was officially supported with the new Ryzen 2000 series APUs, was the fact that it was not, it wouldn't allow us to game. It just kept going into a black screen, and no matter what we did and BIOS updates and stuff, the problem persisted. So we got a whole new round of hardware to test out. This time we're using a Gigabyte motherboard, specifically the B350N gaming Wi-Fi, which is kind of neat, built-in Wi-Fi. But yeah, the results were actually really promising. So here's the testing methodology that I used. We will then show you the results, and we'll talk about some of the growing pains though about this platform that you definitely need to be aware of when it comes to being an early adopter. So testing methodology is this. I pretty much use the same basic benchmarks that have built-in FPS counters that I do when we do our graphics cards reviews. And I use titles that are still fairly demanding even for something like an APU, because I kind of want to give you guys what the worst case scenario is. If I show you a number and you build it and it's better, that's better than me showing you like these best case scenarios where you get it, it performs lesser than I'm showing you, and then I look like, you know, I lied to you guys. And that's not what I want, obviously, for any of you guys to feel. So I use Rise of the Tomb Raider, still fairly demanding. Metro 33, still highly demanding. A couple synthetics like Time Spy and Fire Strike, just so you guys can install those, which are, I think they're still free, and you guys can compare your results at home. And then I did a Cinebench run, only because Cinebench is still a very good benchmark that you can download for free and compare it to your particular CPUs and see a whole list of other CPUs to see where it stacks up. But I'm gonna tell you right now, spoiler alert, the 2400G is performing exceptionally well in something like Cinebench. But with that said, let's go ahead and show you guys the benchmarks. So as you guys can see, compared to the first results, the overclock numbers and stuff, not that far off from what we experienced with the less optimized BIOS that we were dealing with in my previous video. But what was obvious though were the average FPS on the stock settings were significantly higher than our previous test when we just plugged it all in. But you know, not surprisingly, the 2200G and the 2400G in terms of GPU are very, very close, both in base and overclock settings. Now the reason for that is there's only a few extra texture units. I mean, these are very shaved down Vega units. And I think where some people's disappointment with this, and this is obviously a very small group, but I'm gonna speak to this group for a second. The group that heard Vega and was thinking that you were gonna get Vega 56 or, God willing, Vega 64 performance inside of a CPU, that's obviously not gonna happen. What it is, it's the same Vega core architecture. It's obviously not 3D stacked RAM, it's using system RAM. And so that RAM communication is also a bit slower than something onboard like a discrete graphics card. But the fact that they have pulled out performance like this inside of a 65-watt chip is nothing short of amazing. I mean, Intel could is not gonna be able to come up with something like this, which is why AMD and Intel have teamed up for the APUs on mobile. I mean, Intel knew, you go to the guys that are better at this and team up to get a better product, and that's what they've done. Now let's talk about some of the early adopter things that I think that you should be concerned with. So when I first put this together, we got no video. And I was like, oh no, what are we doing? I don't wanna do this again. I don't wanna deal with all these problems. I want this to work. But then a restart, it works just fine. And what I've learned with this particular motherboard, and obviously this is gonna vary based on manufacturer. Every MSI, Asus, Gigabyte, ASRock, they all have different BIOS and different approaches to the built-in operating system. But anytime you change anything on this, you plug in a graphics card, you plug in a hard drive, you unplug a hard drive, the first boot is always a black screen with no video. Simply power cycling the PSU off and back on, suddenly it works. So you guys might have noticed there were only 2 tests that I did with each one of these benchmarks instead of 3 like the previous video, because the previous video I had stock, which is we built it, we ran it, didn't touch anything. We had the video, or 2 gigabytes of video RAM, technically not VRAM, it's just video allocated RAM from the system RAM. And then we had our overclock settings. Now the reason why you don't see the 2G in this one is because the first test defaulted to 512 megabytes of video memory. Obviously not enough for gaming in pretty much any title short of Minesweeper. But this time around it defaulted to the 2 gigabytes automatically. With the exception of the 2400G, the first time I booted it, it went to 1 gigabyte. And then when I restarted it later, it went to 2 gigabytes. So back to some of that early adopter stuff I was talking about, that this is things that you need to be aware of. But I'm telling you right now, it performs very, very well. These settings were all 1080p medium, but if you're running 1080p low, or even a game like Dirt Rally, it just hammers Dirt Rally. Dirt Rally's FPS is super smooth, super consistent, absolutely playable. As with most racing simulators, they don't require a lot of GPU performance, but don't forget the 2200G and the 2400G running almost identical GPUs, but $100 CPU/GPU combo, an APU obviously, was giving you the ability to play games in this market in 2018, which is actually the discussion point here. You could throw a GPU into this. Obviously, we wouldn't do that today because I'm focusing on the APU performance, but you throw a GPU into this, you do get much improved performance. Now, these are not quite as stout as their full Ryzen brethren because they don't have as many PCIe lanes, and there's some other factors there on the engineering side I don't want to delve into yet until we do our GPU testing to see matching Ryzen versus our APU. Do we lose performance when we go to a GPU versus one or the other? Because the idea here is this is a stepping stone to build your PC. You can build it now, you can play your games, add a graphics card later if you find a good used price or the market comes down, hopefully. But it's a very good entry point into gaming. But something else worth mentioning though, if you run out right now and you buy this APU, which is sitting on the shelf at Fry's, at Micro Center, Newegg, or whatever, and you just grab any B350 or even any AM4 socketed motherboard, it's not guaranteed to work because you've got to remember, these just came out, but inventory with motherboards have been on shelves for over a year. So if you grab a motherboard that has not been updated or has the ready for AMD Ryzen APU stickers that's on there, there's a sticker that's gonna be on the boards that are ready to go with the new CPU, you're not gonna be able to boot your system because the motherboards that have been sitting on shelves prior to this APU launching are not gonna know how to communicate with it. So that's something to keep in mind. And I asked AMD specifically, I said, well, how are you guys planning to actually make customers aware that if you buy a motherboard that's been at Micro Center for 2 months and suddenly they buy this CPU paired with it, it's not gonna boot. When I did my first test, I had to actually use a different Ryzen chip and a GPU to update the BIOS just to do my test. So I was kind of like, how is a customer supposed to do this if they're building a new system? So it will be denoted at least with a special sticker on the boxes of the boards that are being sent that are ready for this APU. So look for that. That's important. Or ask your salesman. Hopefully they'll know. But that's something you need to be aware of if you're building the system from scratch. At the end of the day, guys, it's a $100 CPU and a $129 CPU. It's not gonna be groundbreaking, it's not gonna be earth-shattering, it's not gonna be discrete GPU like 1080 performance. But the point is, you could build a whole system to play games on for less than the price of one GTX 1070 today. We're talking memory, CPU, motherboard, hard drive, and power supply. Everything I'm sitting right here on this desk, minus a case, is what you're seeing right here. And you can have all that for under 500 bucks. I don't know how you can complain with that. Anyway, guys, I'm gonna go. We will follow up one more video on this, I promise. I'm not trying to stretch this out and get all of the views on this, but it's a hot topic and we wanna try and cover it as focused as possible. So instead of cramming it all into one video, we're kind of diversifying this. And the next test will be what happens when we put a discrete GPU in there and where does the bottleneck form. We want to see what happens if we start at the bottom like an RX or an R5, R7, whatever, 460, all the way up to like a Titan XP and see what happens. I don't think anyone's gonna put a Titan XP on a $100 CPU, but we can test it, so we will. Anyway guys, we're gonna go. Thanks for watching, and as always, we will see you in the next one.